does not represent Islam to the degree that anyone would equate the terrible actions that took place in Paris with the views of Islam. Those kinds of stereotypes are counterproductive. They're wrong. They will lead, I think, to greater recruitment into terrorist organizations over time if this becomes somehow defined as a Muslim problem as opposed to a terrorist problem.
Joining us now with reaction, Fox News contributors Doug Schoen, Tammy Bruce, and Fox News legal analyst Peter Johnson Jr. Ladies first, Tammy. Right in the center seat, you talk about a paradox between Obama and the Democrats.
Yeah, it's really curious. On one hand, what they're saying is that Muslims are not Muslims if they're engaging in terrorism, but that they're all potential terrorists if we do something that offends them. So you have this mixture of a problem here. In other words, that if what's happening has nothing to do with Islam, but if we do offend them, then Muslims will join the cause. So you can't have it both ways. I'm not quite sure what they're trying to accomplish here. And I think most people kind of recognize that something's amiss in that framework. And of course, in not dealing with the reality of what Islam is and the nature of how it's connected with what's happening with ISIS, if we're really going to deal with this kind of a movement, you've got to deal with its adherents, with the nature of the choices they're making, and with the ideology itself.
Doug, I want to go to you, but I want to put this into the mix.
Sure, please.
Are we insulting Muslims that they're not smart enough to know who the radicals are amongst them and who the peaceful ones? Because I get the point of the paradox.
Yeah, I see it as a somewhat different way. We have an extraordinary amount of terror around the world, largely but not exclusively committed by Muslims, and we do not have a president who has a strategy to go after them and to eradicate terror wherever it comes from. I'm not into semantics. I don't really want to spend a lot of time debating what we call them. I want just to eliminate them. The French are leading, the Russians maybe not, but we have to lead. We have to exercise the scourge of terror wherever and whenever it is evident.
All right, Peter, beyond the word games, and I'm with all of you. Get beyond the word games. Get to the point of action.
And I'm with them, too. They both make sense on that issue. It is a scourge beyond the word games, but it is a political distraction by the president to engage in those word games because he has a failed policy, because he has an ineffective policy. You can't have attacks killing hundreds of people on 3 continents over 6 weeks, 8 or 9 countries, and then somehow castigate, chastise, abuse the American people, that somehow they're Muslim phobic, that somehow they're responsible in some way. They're not responsible. They're not Muslim phobic. We know who the war is. He needs to say who the war is, but it gets back to what Doug is saying. What are the tactics? What's the strategy? What's the win for America? Not excuses and not blaming Americans and Republicans for his failure.
All right, so the strategist, go ahead, Doug, then I got a quick one for you. Go ahead.
What Peter said, and I think his comment was very articulate and intelligent, was we don't want to blame Republicans. We want to unite with Republicans in a strategy, because if ISIS comes here or Al-Qaeda again, they're not going to ask party identification or ideology before they kill us. We have to get them before they get us.
Amen.
It really is that simple.
So let me throw this in real quick to Doug on the political strategy, and then to you, Tammy, same idea. The president plays word games, baits the Republicans into arguments, and we're arguing over the name and over the strategy. Is this pure politics, Doug?
Sadly, it is. Look, I have to agree with Peter, because we don't need a president who is doing precisely what he describes our president doing. We need a president providing bipartisan leadership to eliminate terror with a comprehensive strategy. We don't have it.
Well, the only thing that matters here, apparently at this point, even at the Turkey press conference just a day or two after the atrocities, he first talked about global warming. He talked about inequality. He talked about a bunch of things prior then to mentioning, like an afterthought, the Paris attacks. The problem is terrorism has increased just from last year 80%. This is a dynamic after Benghazi. So we've been leading from behind for 7 years, and terrorism around the world has exploded. We have retreated. We have done nothing. And this is what the result is. That alone puts the lie to the notion that we have been the problem.
Okay, let me go across the board real quick. First to you, Doug. Terrorism metastasizing around the world. Is this the next level, the next generation of terrorism?
I hope it isn't. Tammy makes an important point. The only point I quibble with, I don't think we've been leading at all, whether from in front or behind. We're doing nothing, and that's the real problem.
Metastasizing, getting worse?
Well, yes, look, the problem is ISIS is now taking up the strategy of al-Qaeda, using lieutenants to do attacks in a broad-based way. Before then, they were just relying on their main leaders. So they're using al-Qaeda tactics, and they're spreading around the world.
We cannot accept it as the new norm in America or anywhere around the world. That's an excuse for poor performance. We need to be strong, and we need to say to the Muslim American communities, if you see something, say something. That's going to be key to protecting America in the homeland.
Doug Schoen, Tammy Bruce, Peter Johnson.